Welcome to Dadhammer, Bolters and Booze, where we discuss all things Warhammer while staying hydrated with an adult beverage. I am David the Warboss, and I'm joined by the most generic Space Marine in the Imperium, Mr. Medicae Steve. Steve, how we doing?
We're doing great, man. I know we're a little late or slash early recording this show. We're a little off
Yeah,
off our normal schedule.
yeah,
But no, it's been a good weekend, man. Full of family and friends and catching up with people I hadn't seen in quite some time. So yeah, that's always nice.
yeah. Well, I had pretty good weekend myself. I had my wife and my younger son were out of town, so it was myself and my older son. So it was a little bit of a bachelor weekend, and it was, after being married for a very long time, it's a little odd, just like, well, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, this is what life was like maybe way back when. And it's enjoyable that I get to spend time with my older son one on one, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But definitely do miss my family. But I've been got some gaming in, some video game time, some model painting, all good
That
stuff.
We'll see you spin it wisely though. That's good.
But yeah, I mean, I try to, I could have done productive things, but whenever I have a lot of time, or at least a decent amount of time to myself, and no responsibilities or anything like that, I try to do things that are, I can't normally do.
Yeah.
So
Well, I heard everything productive in that conversation, so I'm okay with it if you really care.
yeah, I mean, what is productivity? It's just a matter of
Mm,
perspective, I think.
yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right.
I feel very productive. We'll just say that. Yeah. Well, we have got a great show for you lined up here. We've got all kinds of good stuff to talk about, and we're going to start off with the Pariah Nexus, brand new show that has hit the Warhammer Plus, Warhammer TV side of the subscription. New episode just started. We got a lot of thoughts around that. We'll also talk about our brand new Combat Patrol League that we have started, an official Dadhammer Combat Patrol League that we've started, and what that means for the website, but also where, for the listeners, if you want to participate, how you can join in the fun. And we've also got a little bit of new terrain news coming up with some upcoming pre orders. And it may be a little bit of a hidden news bit, but there's a lot of implications, I think, for what may be coming to the 40K terrain side of the hobby. So, really exciting there. And we'll talk about all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for listening to our show. If you like what you're hearing, make sure to rate, follow, subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And you know what? Just tell somebody about it. I think that's the best way. We would really appreciate your support, and just tell other folks about this podcast and that how much you enjoy it. And you could always, of course, find us on our website, dadhammerpodcast.com, and on the social media websites as well. But first, we're going to start this show with the most important part of every Dadhammer podcast, and that is, what are we drinking? Um, Steve, I've seen the recipe for tonight,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
and I'm a little confused, but also intrigued at the same time. So I'm gonna let you go first,
All right, I like it.
because normally we let the lame drink go first,
Yes.
but I don't know. You may win me over on this one.
All right, lady and gentlemen, because I think we have at least one lady that would listen. I want to introduce the Bobby Gilliman. Hang on to yourselves, because
Mm.
this will knock your socks off. Uh it's a third ounce of grenadine. I mean, and write this down because it's very
Okay,
important.
got it. Yeah.
Got the numbers are really important here. 1/3 ounce of grenadine, 6 3/4 ounce of cola, a maraschino cherry, and ice. That's right. I just told you
Whoa.
how to make a cherry coke. It's actually a Roy Rogers, but hey, man, oh Bobby G, he's straight as an arrow. And you know what? Sometimes you just don't feel well, I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
sometimes you don't feel like having any alcohol, but you know, even Space Marines, those transhuman genetic masterpieces, who's going to drive the speeder home? I mean, I don't think we've really touched on this subject, but no, it's a bit lame. But I thought I'd add something in there for comic relief. But I
Yeah.
don't know. I think I'm sure we have listeners that are a little bit more take their
Yeah.
parental responsibilities more serious than we do. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, maybe, of course, the younger listeners,
That's
younger
true.
listeners need
That's
something to
true.
drink, and they're responsible. And I think, jokes aside, I think Gilliman would probably. I mean, he's just going to stay hydrated with
That's right.
water or some kind of like Gatorade. He's a Gatorade guy, I think.
Hmm.
Um,
That's fair.
and you can't drink and murder. Right? That's for the orcs.
Well, you don't want to become indiscriminate.
Yeah, this is true. Well, and I think that Rabute Gilliman and Roy Rogers have quite a bit in common. I think
Hmm.
they both are trying to do the Emperor's work. I'm not sure what Emperor Roy would would dedicate himself to. Maybe the director.
The director. He was a war hero, right?
Okay, yeah, fair enough. So, well, I mean, cherry Coke. Okay,
Yeah.
I like the designated driver
Yeah.
aspect of this. That's really good. You got to have somebody on the to drive the speeder bike. Well,
But for what it's worth, you're like a shot and a half away of rum away from being Lehman Russ on this one.
well, that's true. You could
So
spike it.
you
You could
can
spike it.
spike it.
I mean, you could spike anything. Or you just
That-
add a little vodka or whatever you want to, and you're good to go.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, you enjoy your cherry Coke with the crushed ice from Sonic. I mean, that's kind of
Yeah.
what it sounds like. It's a
That's
very
really what it is.
fancy cherry Coke. Um,
What are you
I
drinking?
am, yeah, I'm drinking an IPA from Michigan. No, I'm sorry, Wisconsin. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, similar, right? They're right next
It's
to
got
each
the
other.
same temperature.
It tastes like beer. This is from, I'm probably going to butcher the name, New Glarus,
Okay.
Wisconsin. Yeah, I don't. Apologies from any of our listeners actually in Wisconsin, but this is called Moon Man,
I
and
like it.
it was given to me by one of my friends who I think had a buddy or something that came by and just gave him some IPAs from Wisconsin, and
Okay.
he's not a big IPA drinker, so he gave these to me, and yeah, it's good. I mean, I'm always about trying to find something from out of state.
Yeah, I think that's cool.
That I can't get around here. I can't go to the
Hmm.
grocery store and get it. So, it's kind of nice and a little different from what I usually have. But the one thing is that right before the pandemic, I bought this bottle cap map. It's like a little map the U.S. where you could put bottle caps in it,
I have one
and
too.
but right after I bought that thing, they kind of stopped making bottles. Everything's in cans now.
That's right.
Ugh, so
Wasn't
now I'm
that?
just gonna have that map out there forever.
I know. I probably got like 3 or 4 red stripe caps because I'm like I'm running out of stuff down there to
Yeah,
to find.
yeah. Well, maybe you can make a custom bottle cap for your Bobby G Cherry Coke.
Yeah,
You
that's a
know,
good idea.
yeah, you should. Well, I hope you enjoy your drink, your refreshing beverage, and I will enjoy my beer. Cheers and bottoms up, Steve.
Cheers.
All right, let's get into some news. And we're going to start out first with the brand new, hot off the press. I mean, well, I guess it's been out for about a week. So hot off the press for us fellow olds, where it takes us a while to get around to the new content. But
Yeah.
um, new show on Warhammer Plus, Warhammer TV, and called Pariah Nexus. And this trailer hit a while back and got a lot of people excited.
Hmm.
And I think what had me excited the most was just the Necrons. I was excited to see more on Necrons, but Steve, I know we both watched this, and
Hmm.
first and foremost, for listeners that are interested in this show, the Pariah Nexus show, no spoilers. We're going to talk a little bit about the characters and things like that, but we're not going to talk about actually what happens.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but I mean, I'm just going to start out saying, hands down, so far. Now, this is not the full show yet.
Right.
This is by far the most high quality animation show, I mean, writing, content,
Hmm.
dialogue that they have produced yet. That's my opinion.
100%. It feels like, and you remember when the Indomitus box came out, that trailer, kind of similar to like Terrier's trailer
Yeah.
and all that.
Yeah.
It feels like an extension of that. And I remember watching that. And I still will go back and watch it because I think it was just great. Um, and you're like, wow, this is what I wish they would do something like this. Let's just drag this out longer. And they did.
Yeah,
But
totally.
you have what, 3 years of probably animation development now. So
Mhm.
I dare say the animation is better than that game trailer was. Um, Man, it is just so stinking good. I thought, and they've added so a lot of their voice over and voice acting so far has been sort of drugged kind of straight from the Library
Mhm.
audiobook people, and so far there's voices in there I don't recognize. So it feels like some new talent in there as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought, going back to the animation,
Mm-hmm.
I think what, when I'm looking at the Angels of Death, that was probably their highest quality, or maybe most expensive,
Mm-hmm.
show that they've had to produce from an animation standpoint. There's two different types of animation, right? You've got
Right.
your typical cartoon comic book looking style, which is the hammer and bolter, and then the
Mm-hmm.
interrogator with the black and white, and that those kinds of shows are all Black Talon. All that stuff has
Right.
been very cartoon, and I use that word loosely because that's what we grew up watching
Yeah,
cartoons.
not
And
despairing, Julian.
right. So the modern animation is more like the 3D. Um, I think game trailer. What you just
Game
said
trailer.
is
Mm-hmm.
accurate. The previous animation had that, but the movements were a little robotic and
Yeah.
a little choppy. It just, you could tell this was this is not their cup of tea
Mm-hmm.
right out of the gate. But they've got limited budget, and that's fine. But this animation, I mean, within the first couple of minutes, it looked like a like the Space Marine
Mm-hmm.
video game trailer. It's that good. It's so top notch, high quality, and to me, it looks like somebody just donated a whole bunch of money, you know, to
Yeah.
or they wanted to dump truckloads of money into this show because the animation is so great.
They really upped the bar for themselves, which I hope they didn't outkick their coverage on this one.
Mm,
But I mean, I don't think they have, or they wouldn't have released this. But doggone it, it's just yeah. I mean, we were talking about video games earlier, before we started the show, and started playing Starfield. And there's just this new generation of video games out there that are, it's just so, and if you have like a really high powered computer that can, give you the graphics out of it,
hmm
this is what it feels like. I mean, it feels like
Yeah.
a just the most developed and high budget video game that you could start playing. And it just made it so immersive. It's just great.
Yeah, and I think just with the first, of course, we're only talking about the first episode, so
Yeah, yeah.
there's a lot more that needs to be seen. But from everything I've seen so far, I had zero issues at all. So for those that are maybe not fully aware, I mean, this is nothing. This is not a spoiler. This is
Hmm.
on the website. It features Necrons and Sisters of Battle and some of the Astra Militarum. So that's kind of and of course some Space Marine in there too. So
Right.
those are the, so far, like the four main factions or armies, characters, however you want to look at it. Those are the ones represented. But what I love is that they really go deep into the Necrons and
Mm-hmm.
give them some personality.
Yes.
They show Illuminor well, I used to say Caesaris, I used to say Ceres, I used
Uh-huh.
to say Xeris. I don't know. They say Illuminor Xeris with like a Z.
Then
That
it's
that's what
official.
I hear. So Illuminor Xeris. That's actually how to say his name. But they give him some personality too, and I actually
Oh.
have that model. And as soon as I saw like the bony fingers, like the
Mm-hmm.
longer fingers when he's doing his thing, I mean, it was so cool to have a voice associated with him. And then he goes into talking with the death marks, which,
Yes.
and again, I don't want to do any spoilers,
Right.
but they have an ability that they showcase in this show, the death marks do, which is kind of their teleportation.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to go into all the details of what happens, but my goodness, it was so cool. But Steve, the thing that I've seen with some of these shows, and this one is no different. I watch this stuff and I see something in there. I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. What is that? Is that
Yeah.
an actual ability? And I immediately went and pulled up the data sheets for the death marks,
Yep.
and I see, sure enough, hyperspace hunters. That's an ability that they have. Well, now if I'm gonna go get some death marks because I don't have
Oh, I
any.
know, right?
But now, if I put those things on the table, I'm immediately thinking and visualizing what that looks like in
Uh-huh.
my head from the show. And I don't know if you had the same kind of vibe.
I did. I totally did. And I have some death marks, and they will be. So I was able to, because I have the old, I think it's a Combat Patrol, but not Combat Patrol,
Right.
box set. But it has, you can do either 10 Immortals, 10 Death Marks, or split them up if you want to. And I've done 5 Immortals. And I was like, I think I'm just going to do them all Immortals because they're better quotation marks in the game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Oh no. I don't care how bad they are in the game. I could care less
Yeah.
if they are any good at all, because this kind of speaks to everything that we've always said for ourselves and how we play and how we look at stuff. Now they're one of the cooler units for me, because now that's all. I'm like you. That's what I think about when I look at them,
Yeah.
um, it's just they're going to just have so much more personality now for me. And I can't wait to figure out a cool paint scheme for them, and just just some fun stuff, because yeah, it's just awesome.
I've always thought that the Necrons themselves, just as an army, and I remember you read the lore, and they're like,
Hmm.
okay, they're kind of um, these robots that don't necessarily have a whole lot going on, as far as
Yeah.
emotions, and that's kind of cool. It's the whole creeping death that they are a slow march towards you to kill you. What I really thought was cool that the show did for the Necrons specifically is make them so emotionless,
Hmm.
but not in a one dimensional. It's just like their character, the characters in this show just seem so terrifying
Hmm.
and unrelenting. That it almost has like a, not a horror, but a creepy feel to it. With
Yeah.
these things, and I thought they really did it well, from the Necron side, just the personality stuff.
Well, not I wrote to be funny. They put some meat on the bones of the Necrons.
Yeah, very nice.
Yeah. But you remember that scene in Terminator, like the original Terminator movie,
Mhm.
where it's kind of in the future, but you see a bunch of the typical Terminator skeletal figures, and
Yeah.
they're just walking and crushing skulls. They have no expression, no anything. They're just firing lasers, right? Up until now, that's kind of how I felt that the Necrons were portrayed. Uh, I know there's a little more in depth in the lore, but as far as your aesthetic and your game and everything else, that's what I felt like. Just these mechanized, soulless things that just overall have no personality. And they still don't really have a personality, except their personality now, if you watch the show. And the scary part of them is that they don't understand humanity.
Mm.
It's not, to me, it was like they don't get why all these humans are there. They're just in the way. right? I mean, there's just emotionless, like you said, there's just this complete disconnect from people and souls, yet they have a weird personality about it. They're not necessarily overly evil in a portrayal, I guess, if we want to get, I don't, like I said, we don't want to do spoilers, but um I don't know, they're just sort of cold,
Yeah,
but
I
not
think cold,
flat.
cold and calculating,
Yeah.
to combine the common phrase there. I think what I to your point, I think previously I mostly looked at, especially some of the newer models of the Necron warriors. I looked at them as almost like zombies, you
Right.
know, and they're not. Now, of course, we've only seen a handful here, but
Yeah, that's true.
I don't think they're going to do that, in future episodes where it makes them look like they're just mindless zombies trying to eat your
Hmm.
brain. I mean, these guys are highly skilled and they know what they're doing. They're just very objective focused, not to, no pun intended with Warhammer,
Hmm.
but they have a mission, they're going to go carry it out. It's black or white. And but I think that Illuminor Xeris is more or less the commander, the one calling the shots, which is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I think that it is a really cool way to add some flavor to the Necrons. The other faction in this is the Sisters of Battle, and we've only seen, well, again, no spoilers. I've
No,
only
no,
seen
no.
a little bit there, but it wasn't as impressive, I think, as the focus was really on the Necrons and this looming
Yeah.
threat. But there's some really cool action sequences that are totally worth the price of admission,
Hmm.
for watching this show. So really cool to see the Sisters of Battle, and then of course the Astra Militarum presence in here too is well, it's a little bit, one side and a couple dimensions,
Yeah.
different types of characters, but Astra Militarum, what's the phrase? Is that they only live like 10 minutes or something like that.
Right.
I mean, you got a lot of that here, but there's still some survivability, and I,
Yes.
I think that it was just cool to see different sides of the army that you don't. Okay, all they're going to do is die, and if I always felt bad if you're an Astra Militarum player, if you're a guard player, and every
Hmm.
single show you watch is just, well, they're getting ready to die. They're not as powerful as everybody else. I think you're seeing a little bit more
Yeah.
than just a sack of meat ready to be murdered by every other army, which was
It,
which was good to see.
it adds some really good personality to the
Yeah,
character and very chippy and it's fun.
yeah, I agree.
Um, yeah, I will speak going back to the animation part. I did feel like my only complaint with something like Angels of Death was I feel like the weapon sounds weren't quite up to my standard. I thought they were kind of
Your
quiet
lofty standards.
in my lofty standards. I thought they were quiet and muffled. I feel like the sound in this series so far, at least this one episode, is getting top notch too.
Mm,
That
yeah,
everything involved, just the way the Necrons moved, and there's some stuff about just some of the weapons fire and things that went on. I just felt it was just so much better than a lot of the stuff that's been done so far. So,
yeah, I agree, and I remember the Leviathan trailer. That's what this
hmm,
really feels
yeah,
like. I mean,
that's a
it's
good.
it's at that level of quality.
Hmm.
So if you watch the Leviathan trailer and really like that, that's what to expect, I think,
Hmm.
from this show. Um, but in terms of what this means for the rest of the animation, what the rest of the shows that are coming to Warhammer Plus, I I wonder, again, is this setting the bar too high for themselves? Are we going to expect that every
Hmm.
single show is going to be this level of quality? It's going to depend, of course, because Interrogator, right, the cartoon animation
Right.
was black and white. That had a particular art style to it. That doesn't need to be 3D, but anything outside of the normal animations they've done before, like Angels of Death. I mean, I I don't know. It's gonna be kind of hard to go back
Yeah,
away
a little
from
bit.
the level that they've set here, but
Hmm.
because it's such a big leap in product quality, I think, for Games Workshop. What do you think that, are there any implications for future shows, or maybe even the upcoming 40K Henry Cavill whenever that comes out? That may be like 2035 for all I know. But is that setting the bar? Are they getting some extra money and budget into their content to expand the audience? Do you think this is going to have any significant impact?
I think it will. I know Warhammer TV and all that has been a little bit of a contentious subject. I know the content hasn't been what a lot of people want, and it's mostly volume. Though I appreciate quality over quantity any
Yeah,
day of the week, especially
same.
if I'm paying for it. I mean, I don't need to wade through a bunch of stuff that's just garbage. And I think that cheapens the whole thing. So, long story short, I feel like maybe their patience and maybe this slow progression of things have gotten it more attention to the point where maybe they have more traction with who they hire.
Hmm.
Maybe they've hired new people. Maybe they have new talent that's willing to come on board and take a chance and put their name to it, like Henry Cavill. There may be a lot of people that, of course, we don't know them because we're not in that necessarily that business or circle. And I'm not talking about actors and stuff, but there are animators out there and uh, sound editors and all these things that go into something like this. And maybe between the video games and some of this other release stuff, they're just gaining more juice in the industry, so to
Yeah,
speak.
yeah,
So I'm hoping that that's the direction it goes. And sometimes patience pays off. If you paint houses for a living, you don't want to do 50 sloppy jobs, but maybe if you do 3 or 4 immaculate jobs, people pick up on that and are more willing to hire you.
yeah. I think that's what hopefully they are raising the bar permanently.
Hmm.
But I also don't mind the different animation styles. It's almost like
Yeah, yeah.
looking at you have your movies and you have your animated shows, you have video games, you have all these different types of media and content, books, and I to me, this is just another step up for the animations. I don't know if this means we're going to get this kind of stuff for every show going forwed. I doubt it.
Right. Yeah, I
But
doubt it too.
if it's going to be 3D like this, a 3D animated product, I'm sorry to say, I think it's going to have to be this level because
Hmm.
anything less is going to be a step back. So, you know, we'll see. Obviously we really like the first episode. More to come here, and we'll talk about the next episodes of Pariah Nexus and other shows in the future for Warhammer Plus and Warhammer TV.
Can't wait.
Well, let's now switch over to a Combat Patrol League, specifically the official, I
Yes.
guess that's a official
Yes.
Dadhammer Combat Patrol League. So we decided, for those who have been following our show, know that we've been doing our own Combat Patrol battles. We played several games, and I think I'm up to about 4 or 5 Combat Patrol games. Really enjoying it,
Oh,
and
wow.
enjoying it so much that we talked with several folks, and we have a local game store that we frequent. We've mentioned it multiple times on the show here, Blackthorn Game Center. Um, and we are partnering with them to launch a Dadhammer Combat Patrol League. So really, really, really cool.
Hmm.
What for anyone interested? First of all, you don't have to be local to participate. You don't have to live in the Nashville, greater Nashville area. You can be from any country, any state. We've got listeners at this point global.
Hmm.
Um, if you want to participate, this is all for fun, right? We're not
That's
going to
right.
be handing out sacks of money for cash prizes or anything like that.
You got a
Um,
sack of money?
yeah, I wish, right? Maybe. Um, but this is just for fun.
Yeah.
For just to encourage people to get in and play. So the signups are available on our website, dadhammerpodcast.com. And we've got a specific site that, it'll say league at the top. So if you visit our website, you click there, it'll tell you everything you need to know. But you can sign up through the form on there. You pick your army, and that's pretty much it. So it's
Yeah.
it's fairly self-explanatory. This was all inspired by a recent issue of White Dwarf, which outlined a framework on how to
Mm-hmm.
run your own combat patrol league. And what was cool is that it highlighted a table and how to score. So, for example, you get a point for particular categories of things throughout these games. So, if you're playing a game, you get 1 point to play one. You get a point if you win. You get a point for a fully painted army when you're playing. This is Combat Patrol, of course.
Mm-hmm.
You get a point for a unique opponent that you faced. And then we're also throwing in a point for a game played at Blackthorn. Now, this
Oh
is really
yeah,
just to
yeah,
kind of
absolutely.
incentivize folks to come in. But but if you're not close, that's okay. Again, this is just for fun. Um, and you've also got a column for the number of warlords you've killed in each of your battles, and then the number of units slain. And that's more just an extra tally, something to keep track of. But
Mm-hmm.
all this is, and one of the things I wanted to get to is really this is about having fun, being flexible with schedules. We're going to run it from October 1st to December 1st, and just to kind of start with an initial season to see what the interest is.
Mm-hmm.
We've already got about 10 people signed up, which is pretty cool, and that let's be flexible with the schedules. You don't have to play in store. You could play at your house. You could play wherever you want, and then just report the results through our website, and we'll be updating it and sticking the leaderboard out there. So
Yeah.
all that's there. But what I think is really cool about this, and this has been my experience, and Steven, I'm interested in your experience as well here. But my experience with playing Combat Patrol League, and I've had this with playing arcade games in the past. The fact that there is a leaderboard. I'm a very competitive person. Not competitive enough to go to a tournament or anything. I'm
Right.
not. I just I don't want to train, and study. I don't want to be that competitive,
Uh-huh.
but I'm competitive enough against other folks that are like me. When there's a leaderboard and I'm not at the top or I take a loss, it
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 hurts.
stings a little bit.
It
Yeah,
does
there's
stink.
there's I'm not losing money. I'm not, there's no trophy per se,
Mm-hmm.
but just seeing that somebody else has the high score kind of burns me a little bit.
It's very motivating, right? I mean, it is and it's cool because this is getting into like a virtual community, right?
Mhm.
Like we're helping facilitate this, and big thanks to Mark and Jane at Blackthorn, kind of letting us sort of shamelessly plug our own show and all that
Right.
stuff. But part of our motivation is to a focus people maybe to them as a merchant,
Mhm.
because they've been so supportive of us, but also make it to where if you can't make it to the store, or you don't have to, because I
No.
mean the whole purpose of that, you and I starting this podcast was to sort of develop this friendly community of,
Mhm.
man, you don't have to go and do, you have more people around you than you know. um and maybe you'll meet some new people through this, and if it becomes like a virtual playground, that's great. But if it expands your ability to meet up with and play with other people, that's the goal.
Yeah.
And it's a friendly, there's no real major skin in the game. It's a format that the more games you play, the faster it goes, and that which means the more games you're likely to play in the future.
Yeah.
um and it's a little bit easier to pick up, and it's easier because now, all right, I want to play against people that I don't know, and I want to be a little bit competitive but not crazy competitive, but I don't have 18 months to put a 2,000 point army together, both financially and hobby wise, but man, you can knock out a combat patrol without much trouble. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just I like facilitating, and
Yeah.
and we're just data collecting. I say we, mostly you.
Well, I I think the community aspect, what you talked
Yeah.
about, and really that's the reason we're talking about it on this. That's the reason we started the podcast. That's the reason we built a website. The main goal, and we said this out front. but even with this league, it's just we like talking about Warhammer.
Hmm.
We want to meet other people that are like-minded, that love this game, and just want to be able to throw some dice and have a good time. And that's what this league is. And anybody can participate. We've already got a good representation already. So we've had about 10 signups so far, and I don't really have a cap or a max. I
Hmm.
mean,
Right.
if you want to sign up, and the other thing is, let's say you sign up and you only are able to play one game, and it's an unpainted army. That's fine.
Do it.
It's
Please
it's
do it.
okay. You play one game, and then maybe that's all you have time for.
Hmm.
Awesome, right? I mean, I have really good intentions about playing all the time, and then sometimes I get 3 or 4 games in. Other times I get one or
That's
none.
right.
So don't feel like there's any commitment here. The only commitment is that you sign up with your information and hit submit.
Hmm.
That's really the commitment.
That's it. And maybe
Um,
maybe just a commitment to yourself to try
yeah,
to get some games in. That's
sure.
it.
Yeah. And so good representation of armies. I did want to talk about a few here.
Hmm.
And I even wanted to go so far, for since we're doing this league, is to make some predictions. So
Hmm.
just to be clear, I don't know the folks that have signed up. There's a lot of strangers. Hopefully they will become friends. I'm excited
Yeah,
to meet these
absolutely.
folks. So we've got the Aldari, Necrons, Space Marines, just generic Space Marines,
Hmm.
straight up Space Marines, World Eaters, Chaos Space Marines, Dark Angels, Tyranids, and Drukhari. So really good representation. I was
Hmm.
expecting maybe multiple iterations of Aldari or something like that, but no. I mean, a really wide gamut here
Mm.
representation. Um, so just and I've got my own opinions here, but Steve, based on what you've seen just in the armies, we don't know the
Hmm.
players. We don't know if every single one of these people are veterans of the game and we're just going to get bulldozed as soon as we book in. Maybe, I don't know.
Never
But
know.
based on the armies themselves, and you played against most of these,
Hmm.
any predictions or standouts?
I don't. Um, like I don't know. Eldari are tough. I think that that's probably going to carry over into Combat Patrol.
Mm-hmm.
You know, every time, every time I put my Dark Angels Combat Patrol on the board, I'm like, whoa! I have so few models, and you have so many. And I mean, I have 10 models.
Yeah.
And it's like, how am I gonna do this? I just don't feel this working out. And they hang in there. And it's amazing. Well, it's amazing what a Redemptor Dreadnought will do
Right.
to keep your whole carry the weight of the crew. But don't be discouraged. It would be my first. And don't go picking. I wouldn't go picking a box because it has more models in it, unless that's what you want
Mm-hmm.
and you want like bang for your buck, so to speak. I do feel like so far what games we've played, and you and I have talked about whether we played each other or kind of debriefed the games that they do feel fairly well matched. Um, you just need to know how to play your army would be my
Yeah.
suggestion. Now, there's going to be little caveats to some things that just do work better. I feel like there might be some, but without playing them, I don't really know. But I feel some might be more beginner friendly because it's just a little bit easier to walk back a mistake necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
With 10 models, you don't want to make a lot of mistakes and get things wiped off the board. So it can be kind of hard to take that back. But at the same time, just because you have 30 on the board doesn't mean that they're necessarily that survivable. So a mistake with those might be even more critical. So
Yeah.
to me, it's hard to say. I don't know. How do you, what is your kind of precognition?
It's going to come down to the players, of course,
Hmm.
but I've played against several armies within this. I've played against Aldari, Necrons. I'm Chaos Space Marines. I played against your
Hmm.
Dark Angels. I've done Thousand Suns. I played against a lot of different types of armies, and what's really cool about these is that, to your point, I played against a Thousand Suns army, which are relatively in the 40K sphere. In the
Hmm.
larger games, very competitive, right? Pretty
Right.
pretty high up there. They're not up there with Aldari per se, but they are still pretty high up. And in the Combat Patrol game that I played, they, you know, typically I associate Thousand Suns a little more elite, a little more,
Hmm.
the Rubric Marines, the Terminators, and a lot of psychic abilities. But because it's Combat Patrol, there were a lot of, and I can't remember the name of them. They were the cheaper troops, two squads of those,
Yeah.
and they were it was a little more horde
Right.
based, which
Hmm.
was different. So now that said, I think what's going to factor in is the amount of cover and terrain that you can get,
Hmm.
if you've got a lot of models, because what you were saying, World Eaters, for example, very heavily melee based army, but then the Combat Patrols, a lot of models in there.
Right.
So in orcs, for example, that combat patrol is really all over the place. It's got your orc boys, it's got some def coptas, so the
Yeah.
helicopter flying units, and then a def dread, so a little bit of everything, but nothing that is one thing is going to be overly powerful. Um, so, the reason I asked if you had any standouts or predictions is because I didn't either.
Right.
I didn't really have, like, well, maybe I'm missing something, but
Hmm.
so far, every single army that I played, nothing really felt, oh my goodness, so overpowered. And even still, I went on YouTube and I just looked up, kind of in preparation for this, what is the best combat patrol? And I
Okay.
thought surely somebody's ranked them. Well, a lot of people have ranked them, but I watched several ranking videos, and what was interesting is that the ranking system was not based on their abilities or how good on the table they were.
Okay.
The ranking system was based on the value,
Oh.
meaning, like, how many models do you get? How
Okay.
valuable is this? Is it a bunch of trash?
Hmm.
Trash in quotations, right? Air quotes, because I like a combat patrol box just for the variety. But some
That's right.
people that are trying to build a larger 2,000 point army, they don't want to buy a combat patrol box and then say, okay, I want to buy a second combat patrol box. So that's really where the value
Exactly.
hits, right? But
Right.
if the box is half of it is no good, then well, that's not really going to help you. So
Hmm.
what was really cool is that really it's just based on, do you like the army? Do
Yes.
you like the aesthetic? And are the models in that combat patrol box cool? And if the answer is yes, then I don't think you can go wrong here, which is really
Yeah.
interesting.
And it's because I don't need to buy anything else at all.
Sure you do.
Period. I have to finish some things. I've made myself a goal, but anyway, it absolutely makes me want to grab a box of something that I
Mhm.
would never do a whole army for.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I hate to say it because I do like the big games, but I really kind of feel like if you wanted to just make this your hobby, like, hey, I am a straight up combat patrol player, and that's all I'm
totally.
going to do.
Totally.
Man, you could absolutely do it. I was like, well, to go back to what you're saying about predictions and stuff, because, um, our friend that was playing with us the other day, she had the Drakari, and I had kind of did a little research before we played because I knew I was going to play. Man, I walked into that. I was like, oh, that hurt. That's just so terrifying.
Mhm.
I mean, the army, it's beautiful. I mean, the models were just fantastic. But B, what the substance of it was just so cool, man. I mean, they had two of these like, raider speeder things, with on paper sort of dreadnought type stats. So I was like, yeah, I got 10 people. There's no way I'm gonna winning it. There's no way I'm gonna even like make it to turn three because it was just that scary. But amazingly enough, the my little 10 combat patrol guys have
Mhm.
impressed me every time.
They
And
the Games
it's so
Workshop's done
weird.
a they've done a really good job of balancing the rules out with
Hmm.
these combat patrol boxes, and you're gonna have that feeling. And Warhammer is very unique in this way, I think. But you get that feeling like there's no way I'm going to win. It's
Mhm.
game over after turn one, and then somehow that maybe the attacks from the other from the opponent aren't as beefy as you thought they were going to be, or
Right.
maybe your models are a little tougher than you thought, and
Mhm.
somehow you're still around, and then you get into your strengths, and they they so far to me, this is one of the reasons we're starting this league, but so far they have made a really good move with this combat patrol. Very exciting, games that we've had every single one, and then even better is that it's not a limited version. It's
Mhm.
pared down a little bit. The rules are pared down, but they're simplified so that once you learn your combat patrol, it's very easy to take and go into a larger 40K game should you choose to do so. But that's why we started this league. We want to get more people interested, more people playing, and more armies on the table. So if all this is something that you're interested in, please head to our website. We've got a
Mhm.
big menu at the top there that says league. Click on that. It gives you all the information. And please, no matter if you are in the local Nashville area or somewhere else in the world, don't hesitate. Sign up, and we'll be happy to welcome you into the community. Really excited to get going, and we'll talk more about our Combat Patrol League and the future episodes of this podcast.
Yeah. Exciting days, man.
Well, let's wrap with one last topic for this show. Let's talk about the recently announced upcoming pre-orders, and the reason that I think this is so interesting, and people that have frequented our show will know that how much I love terrain,
Mhm.
and the recent pre-orders were kind of a sneaky thing to me. But maybe I'm reading a little too much into it, and being a little more hopeful. But they showed off some upcoming pre-orders for terrain that is made to order.
Yeah.
Generally, when it carries that made to order, it's got a little icon that has a hammer next to it. When it
Mhm.
when it says made to order, generally that means they're retiring something. That means it's no longer going to be available. It's an older model that they don't really want to make anymore.
Yeah.
Um, I but what they announced this time is quite a bit of Imperial Guard ish type terrain. So they showed off the bunkers, the defense line, um, the Imperial Bastion.
Mhm.
So that if you head over to the Warhammer community site and you can see these. But if you've been in the Warhammer game for a while, you know what these things look like. These are very your typical Astra Militarum
Mhm.
looking terrain pieces, defense lines, things like that. But they also showed off the what's it called? Sky Shield landing pad, which is like a
Yeah.
helicopter pad, and that thing looks really cool. So a lot of cool stuff coming up made to order, and I'm probably going to be picking up a few of these. Steve, are any of these catching your eye?
I do like the tower. Um, I'm actually going to go back and repaint, not necessarily repaint, but retreat some of my terrain that I already have, which I need some terrain.
Hmm.
I was kind of going for maybe a Sector Imperialis kind of look, a little
Hmm.
Mechanicum kind of thing, or yeah,
Hmm.
Sector Mechanicus. Sorry, but I think any of this will fit into my vision because I'm kind of looking at stuff that's semi neglected versus completely abandoned. So I want some stuff that looks like nature kind of took over. So I think anything will work. But I really do like that tower. That's very cool. I like the Aegis defense line, though I don't know, what you would do with it. I did have this
Yeah.
weird daydream about, well, what if you used the Aegis defense line and played it like um, boarding actions, kinda, or played a combat patrol with nothing but defense line
Oh,
trenches? That'd be
geez.
kind of
Oh, man.
interesting.
Yeah.
Be kind of weird
Well,
because I don't know what the rules are with that
well,
particular, piece
the
of
defense
terrain.
line, yeah, I think with at least in 10th edition, I think you're going to treat them like craters,
Hmm.
very similar. Where if you're wholly within, you get a +1 to your save. Um, I'm normally my terrain that I put on the table is high. It's a
Mhm.
higher, 3 or 4 stories or something like that. I like the terrain that goes up higher off the
Mhm.
ground. It just
Mhm.
looks cooler. It
Looks
may not
good.
always have a great mechanic, or a purpose. Well,
Mhm.
in 10th edition, you've got the where you can get an extra AP by shooting down, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's pretty fun.
But this tower would be that. But what is drawing me to this, so it's because I've seen some of the official battle reports that they've done on Warhammer Plus, and what they typically do, and especially in some of the artwork, if you look in the Leviathan boxes, they'll take a tower or a
Mhm.
defense line, and then they'll combine it all together and put some rocks and stuff around it,
Mhm.
and it looks like an outpost, or a
Yeah,
fortress.
I like that.
So the only problem is that it's going to require, a couple of towers, several of the defense
Yeah.
line, and now all of a sudden you're spending 200-300 bucks on this stuff.
I bet it's more than that. Unfortunately, that's where I'm gonna have to be careful because I'm holding my anticipation in check to see how much it's gonna cost.
Yeah, it's probably going to be a lot, but
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to seeing this because I do want to combine it. However, what you mentioned Sector Imperialis earlier, and I know you meant something else, but the Sector Imperialis terrain to me was what really attracted me to terrain back in Eighth
Mhm.
Edition, because it's more that Gothic feel,
Mhm.
the Gothic looking terrain, and for the longest time, I think Games Workshop, a lot of the players were tired of the Gothic terrain because that's all they saw. It was just
I see.
the arches and the statues and the swords and the all this stuff.
Yeah.
It's just the same thing over and over again, and they got tired of it. Well, then they stopped selling it, and most everything now is ruins and small buildings and bunkers, and it got
Yeah.
shorter. Like the terrain got shorter.
You only needed one level. I mean, the competitive market sorta drove that, I guess, for lack of a better,
Hmm.
better thought, I suppose.
Yeah, but what's cool is that one of the kits that they are also coming up made to order is the Sector Imperialis Large Base Detail Kit, and that's a mouthful. Really, all it is it's just a ton of debris. That's what it
Yeah,
is. It's just a
but
ton
it's
of
good
debris.
looking stuff.
Yeah, that it's going to be really easy to clip out, just little
Mhm.
squares and little chips and pieces off of statues or other buildings or something like that. And you cut that out and you would glue it onto your terrain. You
Mhm.
could glue it onto maybe a large model, or I mean, some of the stuff's small enough where you could put it on, maybe a vehicle or something like that, depending on what you
Right.
wanted to do. But what what I'm thinking is that they're releasing this because they're getting ready to come out with some more Sector Imperialis-ish ruins. And what better way to decorate that stuff if you have this kit? I don't know. Steve, am
Well,
I am I reading too much into it? Am I too hopeful?
no, because the other kit is the hero bases. Um and the bits for to make elevated bases that your characters can be on. And a lot of those are the Sector Imperialis kind of ruins
Yeah.
looking stuff. I think there's like was it like a blown up tank
Yeah,
top?
and what I'm what
Um
I'm what I'm excited about though is because if these were existing
mhm,
products that they sold on their website and they were turning them made to order, well,
mhm,
that's different. That means that they're ready to retire them. They're getting ready to go away, so they're not mass producing them anymore.
mhm.
But these are coming back. Some of them have been out before. I don't remember the hero bases, and those maybe I haven't seen
I
those before, but
I don't remember seeing those either ever. But now I will most likely pick that up just
there's
because
they're pretty cool, man.
they're
Like
very neat.
the big steps and stuff, and especially if you've got a single model character
Mhm.
that you want to put on on top of a tank,
Yeah.
or some terrible chaos model that just took down, or won some big victory, and there's one with some steps on it. Looks really cool.
Mhm. There's a
So
orc one with the little
yep,
bomb.
yep, with the little bomb. Yeah,
Yeah.
you're gonna put a Gretchen on top of the bomb. I think that'd be cool. But I mean, this kind of stuff though is hopefully, and I went into our local Games Workshop store, and I was talking to the guy there, and I said, I see this terrain, but it's all small ruins
Hmm.
or the bunkers and the fences that they recently had, and those are all single levels. Great for kill team, not so much for
Hmm.
40K in my opinion.
Right.
And I said, I wish they would come out with more Gothic buildings again. And he interrupted me and he said, be on the lookout, just
Yeah.
hold on to that. And so I thought, oh, maybe,
Please
maybe that
don't do
means
this
that,
to me.
yeah, they're getting ready to come out with something. Um, but I'm really hopeful for some new Gothic buildings. But going
Hmm.
back to the Sector Imperialis, there was one terrain kit that I never got, which has two large statues in the front.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I think it was the Sector Imperialis Basilicanum.
Okay.
Um, and it has like these two really large statues in front of a really big doorway. And the statues are like the size of, from a model standpoint, about the size of a knight, right?
Right.
So pretty big, really cool Gothic looking ruins. And I hope they re-release this stuff or come out with something similar. So Steve, are you mentioned looking at the tower? If they came out with new buildings, is that something you're interested in, or are you more on the smaller terrain?
No, no, no. I need some big stuff. I like the way it looks on the table. I think it just adds it's just almost like an extra character to the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
feel like these bits, these bases, and these detail kits are 100%, in my opinion, something that they've been missing on now. Because it feels like they're trying to promote you to put your piece of terrain on a base because that's
Yeah.
the way the rules are playing, like
Yeah.
you have been doing pretty much with everything you have.
Mm-hmm.
So this helps that to kind of facilitate that a whole lot. Up till now, you kind of had to lean on the 3D print market, or some, other aftermarket kind of thing. Or like I've been toying around with bases when I have a character. I I build them up and make them look different and
Yeah.
a little bit more
Epic.
imposing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, yes, it's probably a little bit out of the spirit with the rules of the game and dimensions, but most of us we don't care.
Right.
So I like to make them look cool, because it's a single model. Um, and these, I don't know, boy, it sure looks like maybe we're going to get something else because I mean, there's a whole new crop of people coming into the game, and there's just not a lot of choices out there for them right now.
Yeah.
So
And
that keeps me thinking, surely we're going to get something soon.
Yeah, and what I had planned on doing, or what I've done with previous terrain, especially the larger buildings, is sometimes there'll be bits left over. Rarely,
Rarely.
but every now and then they might throw in an extra, piece or two. Or I've gotten a box of these smaller ruins,
Hmm.
and you can take that and chop it up and kind of use it
Right.
for the same effect if you have a nice base. And to me, we've talked about terrain in the past and how to make that, but to me, not just having the building and then putting it down in a battle mat or something, it looks good, but
Hmm.
I like it if it's on a base and it's got a lot of debris on it, or fallen statues or columns, and it doesn't take much to make it look like that.
Hmm.
There's all kinds of tutorials on how to do that, but I'm excited to see where they're going to go with this. I'm hoping in the next month or two, maybe at the next reveal, the next preview, that they show off some new terrain. They don't need a lot, really. I mean,
Mm-mm.
if they just came out with two or three kits, that honestly would be enough. They don't need a ton.
Right.
Um, just two or three buildings, and they've got enough ruins and some of the other stuff. But for those that are maybe new to the game and are considering terrain, as much as I hate to say this because it's everybody has their own budget, um, they don't make this stuff again. I
Mm-mm.
mean, a lot of this stuff I thought, oh well, it'll be around forever and ever, just like all the other games and products that I purchase. No, like once it's gone, you can't get it again unless you're willing to spend
Yeah.
$300 on eBay, and then
And
it's
that's
not
where
worth
I
it.
That's what I'm struggling with right now. So I can definitely attest to that.
So I'm not trying to, convince someone to make a purchase. Maybe they don't want to, but
Mm-hmm.
if you're eyeballing some terrain and you're thinking it's going to be around for a little while longer, you probably have about 3 to 6 months, honestly,
That's
before
all
they
right.
start removing, or like Disney, they put it back in the vault. So,
Mm-hmm.
and it may not come back out. So I hate to be like that, but just from my own experience, if you're interested in terrain, don't wait. Just go ahead and get it. Keep your
Yeah,
receipt if you're unsure, but I would go ahead and get it if I were you.
I agree with that.
Well, that will wrap our show. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Medicae Steve. Thank you to my beer. I hope you enjoyed your designated driver special, your Billy G Cherry Coke.
Billy G.
I am David the Warboss, and we will see you next time on Dadhammer. Cheers, Steve.
All right, take care.